We're good.
Okay, we're going to do CDL pre-trip on this bus. We're going to start over here at the left front corner. We're going to look and make sure the glass is not cloudy, cracked, broken, or missing. And the rest of the glass down the side, we're going to check our mirror to make sure it's securely attached. The glass is not cloudy, cracked, broken, or missing, and the mirror is secure to the bus. Looking in this compartment here, we're going to check our fuses to make sure we have spare fuses in the box here. Also, we're going to check our windshield washer fluid. As we look back in here, we're going to check our pitman arm, which comes off our steering box. The nut and castle nut and cotter pin are attached, and everything looks secure. We're going to check our drag link, which runs back along here. It looks like it's secure. The rubber bushing is there. As we come on back through the wheel, we can see part of our drag link coming through here, which is attached to the steering knuckle behind the tire that you cannot see, and also your tie rod and tie rod ends, which are right here that connect your two front wheels. Castle nut cotter pins are there, and they're all attached properly. Also, while we're in here, we're looking for any wiring that may be loose or air lines that may be leaking. We're listening for leaks. Also, we're checking to make sure our spare tire is present. As we walk around the front of the coach, we're going to look at the suspension to make sure that it's not leaning left or right, which could indicate a suspension problem or lower flat tire. We're also looking at our clearance lights to make sure that they're amber in color, they're not cracked, broken, or missing. We're also looking at our wipers to make sure proper tension on them, the blades are good, so that they work properly. Checking our windshield to make sure that it's not cracked, no stone chips bigger than a dime. We're going to check our inspection sticker and weight class sticker to make sure that the weight class sticker is proper. Inspection sticker for the state of Pennsylvania is up to date. As we come on down, we're looking at our turn signals, left and right. Make sure the lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing. We're checking our headlights. Make sure that they're firmly attached. They're not cracked, broken, or missing. We come around the right side. Once again, we're going to check our right mirror, make sure the glass is not cloudy, cracked, broken, or missing. The mirror is attached firmly to the coach. As we start down the side, we're looking at all our glass to make sure that it's all attached, not cracked or missing. We're checking our clearance light at the top to make sure it's not cracked, broken, or missing, and also our running lights and turn signals here on the side, both here and at the back, are not cracked, broken, or missing. We come to the front tire here. We want to check our brake canister, which is right in there. Make sure the clamp's there, make sure it's attached firmly, the push rod's not bent. Okay, as we come out here, we're looking through the holes in the rim to make sure our brake caliper is looks like it's firmly attached. Our brake rotor, which you can see through the holes here, is not cracked, which would be bad. We're going to look at our tire for cuts, abrasions on both the inner and the outside side of the tire. We're going to check it to make sure it's a first line tire, make sure it's at least 4/32 of tread in all major grooves. We're going to check the proper inflation. This has a tire monitoring nut on the end, which will blink if it's low. The proper air pressure is between 100 and 110 psi.
You unscrew that.
And if you don't have these, you check it with a air gauge to make sure through your valve stem that it's between 100 and 110 psi. You're going to check your rim to make sure it's not cracked, no illegal welds. You're going to check your lug nuts to make sure they're all tight. There's no stress cracks in between. If the lug nuts were loose, you'd see rust trails on a steel wheel you would see black streaks or shiny spots on an aluminum wheel. Come on down, you're going to check your hub through the sight glass here to make sure there's proper oil, to make sure your hub seal is not leaking. You're going to check your suspension in here. This has airbags, so you want to make sure your airbags are properly inflated. There's no cuts or abrasions on them. Also, you want to check your torque arms that run back from the axle back, that the rubber bushings are not dry rotted or pushed out. You're going to check your shock absorber. Make sure the rubber bushings are present. If it was leaking, there'd be oil streaks down the side of it. Make sure it's properly attached to the axle and the frame. So come back here to our first luggage bay door. We're going to look for our 3 reflective triangles. We're going to check our fire extinguisher to make sure it's properly tagged. The needle is in the green. The safety pin is in there so it doesn't go off. Also, you're going to look up here on the top to make sure the wiring and stuff is not look burnt. It looks like everything's attached properly. You're making sure that your doors on all 4 luggage bays, they operate properly and latch and seal. As we walk back to coach, we're making sure that there's no major damage. You're checking your clearance lights, turn signals once again here. We get back here, we're going to check our fuel area. We're going to look underneath to make sure there's no leaks on the ground for fuel. You're going to check to make sure your cap is secure and the rubber gasket is here. We come back to our rear wheels. Once again, we're listening for any audible air leaks in the suspension. It is an airbag suspension. There is shocks which are up in here that you can't see, but we're going to look at these shocks here, both on your drives and your tags. Once again, there's no oil streaks on them. The rubber grommets are good. It's firmly attached. You've got an airbag suspension, so you're making sure your airbag's not cut or frayed. On your drive tires, must be at least 2 30-seconds tread on all major grooves. You're going to check your bud spacing, which is the space between the 2 tires. Make sure there's nothing lodged in there. You're going to check your inner and outer sidewalls of your tire for any cuts or abrasions. You're going to check your air pressure cap once again on your valve stem. If it's blinking, that means it's slow. Your air pressure would be between 100 and 110 psi. You're going to check your rims to make sure there are no cracks or illegal welds. You're going to check your lug nuts. Make sure they're tight. There's no stress cacks in between. They're all present. You're going to check your axle seal to make sure it's not leaking. If it was, there'd be a spiderweb effect on the rim here. You're going to check your mud flap. Make sure that the mud flap is properly attached, it's not rubbing against the tires. You come back to the tag tire, you're going to check your suspension, your brakes, your tires, your rims, air pressure, your lug nuts, your hub seal, the same as you would your front tire. In your battery compartment, you're going to check to make sure your batteries are secure. There's no corrosion on the terminals. Make sure, once again, all your wiring looks good. There's nothing cut, frayed, or rubbing in here. Come back to the engine door. You're going to check your power steering fluid. Make sure that it's up to the proper level. You're also going to look at your fuel filter to make sure that it's not too high up in the glass here. As we're in here, we're also once again looking at all electrical wiring to make sure nothing looks cut or frayed. And we're going to look in here past the AC compressor in the back of your holding tank to your air compressor. Your air compressor's gear driven. All the nuts and bolts are tight. There's no audible signs of air leaking from the compressor. You're also checking your oil and coolant lines going in there, that there's no hose leaks on your air compressor. So we come around the back. You're going to check your alternators that the bolts are tight. The wiring in the back of these are not cut or frayed. Your belt has no more than 3/4 inch deflection. You're going to check your engine oil to make sure it's in the proper operating range. To do that, you have to wipe it off. If it's down to the add, you would add a gallon of oil. We've checked our power steering fluid over on the other side. We're going to check our power steering pump. Make sure it's securely attached. It's gear driven. There's no signs of leaks on the lines. You're going to check all your belts. Proper tension. They're not cut or frayed and cracked. So come on over. We're going to check the oil in this gearbox that runs your fan drive to make sure that it's in proper operating range. Once again, you're going to check your belt for tension. Make sure it's not cut or frayed on the fan. You're also standing back looking for any puddling underneath the vehicle, which could be diesel fuel, coolant, motor oil, power steering fluid. Come up here, we're going to check our sight glass for our coolant to make sure it's at least halfway up and it's in operating range. Plus, once again, you want to check your clearance lights to make sure they're all properly attached, not cracked or broken. You're going to check your tail lights, turn signals, reverse lights, license plate lights to make sure they're all attached properly, not cracked or broken. We will check the operation of all our lights after we do our air brake test and our in-cab inspection. I would check the left side of the bus the same as I did the right side. Okay, as we come to our passenger entry door, we want to make sure that it's attached properly, make sure the handles are secure, and it operates properly. We're going to check our step treads to make sure none of them are loose. It causes a tripping hazard. We're also going to check our passenger entry handles in the stairwell that they're firmly attached, and then when we go to get in. Okay. Our passenger area, we're going to check to make sure all seats are firmly attached to the floor and all the seat cushions are firmly attached to the seat frames. We're going to check all the seats the whole way back the same way. Check the backs this way, I'll check the bottoms on the way up. As we get to the back here, we'll check the restroom door that it operates properly. Make sure that the light works properly if the coach was on. As we come back forward, we're going to check our roof hatch to make sure that it operates properly and closes. We're also going to check one emergency exit. Make sure that the bar lifts, the window pushes out. Make sure it's latched properly. We're coming back up, we're checking seat cushions to make sure that they're attached to the seat frames. We're going to check our first aid box and our body fluid kits. We're going to check to make sure that the fire extinguisher is firmly attached to the seat frame, it's tagged properly, and the needle's in the green. We're ready to get in the driver's area. We're going to do a safe start. We'll check in, emergency brake set, start the bus up. we start the bus up, we're going to check oil pressure and make sure it's up to about 40 to 60 pounds. We're going to check our water temperature. It should run between 175 and 195. Got enough fuel for the trip. We're going to check our air gauges to make sure they're properly raising. It should be up to 120 pounds is when the governor kicks off. We're going to check our amp gauge on a coach. It's between about 27 amps when it's fully charging. We're going to check all our indicator lights. Left turn signal, right turn signal, our four-ways, our high beam indicator, make sure they all work. We're going to check our heat and defrost. That they work properly. We check our horns. Make sure they work properly. At this time, we're going to shut the coach down. We're going to turn the key to the on position. We're going to release our emergency brake. We're going to step on the brake pedal. We should not lose more than 3 pounds per square inch in 1 minute with the brake applied. Once the minute's up, we're going to start fanning the brakes off. Between 60 and 80 pounds, there should be a light, and there is no alarm until we start the coach that we're low on air. Between 20 and 40, our emergency brake should automatically set. The spring brakes Okay, once that's happened, we're going to start the coach up and build up air. So we're sitting here, the mirrors are adjusted to me for driving, the windshield is all clear, no illegal stickers, no stone chips bigger than a dime. We're going to check our wipers and washers to make sure they operate properly. We're going to make sure our parking brake is holding. We're going to put it in gear. We're going to pull against the parking brake to make sure that the parking brake is holding. And then we're going to roll ahead 10 feet or 5 miles an hour. We're going to step on the brake, lightly hold the steering wheel. If the brakes were out of adjustment, it would pull left or right. If there was a suspension or a low tire, it would pull. And the service brake worked okay. When I first started the coach up, the ABS light come on for the first 2 to 3 seconds, which tells me my ABS system on the brakes is working. Headlights high and low, and your brake lights. You got to remember your brake lights do not operate unless you have the emergency brake off to check to see whether the service brake part of the brake lights work.